All right, so my Maytronics robot right here, my Dolphin robot, this is a used one I bought, and it was working for the last couple months. I leave it in the pool 24/7, and recently it just started randomly going and then just shutting off within the first couple seconds of coming on. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to take it apart, see if it's leaking inside, and then replace the seals. So for this version, you go ahead and just remove the top right here. You take the basket and everything out, and then just go ahead and take these two screws off, and then take the top off. Once you do that, you can take the diverter top right here off. It comes off pretty easily, just slide it right off. And then right now, what we got in here is got some corrosion right there. I see signs of corrosion around here. So once we're in there, you can take this thing off. It comes right off. A lot of times this thing gets stuck or full of hair and stuff, and that's the most common thing, but I'm assuming mine has probably got water intrusion, and it might be messing up some stuff at the bottom. So we'll go ahead and take the two screws down here that hold it in. Once you take the screws out, it just slides right out. Just gotta go take the gear on the corner, clear that gear, and just pull the whole assembly out. So this drive assembly is usually $300 or $400, which is like half the cost of this thing to replace, and they go bad after 2 or 3 years just because of the seals and how poorly everything is done on the inside for the electronics. As far as the cable goes, you can remove the cable right here by untwisting that on this spot. You can see I've done it a couple times. I've kind of messed up that edge right there with pliers. The other option is just go ahead and unscrew it right here, pop this clip off to the side, and then you could loosen that, and then you could just unscrew this and then pop it right out of there, and just take the rest of this onto the bench inside to work on it. To turn this thing, you need a pretty big crescent wrench. I've got this 15-incher here, which fits. My 10-inch does not fit, so I have to go ahead and just turn this thing and pull it out. Once you break it loose, you can just go ahead and turn it by hand. It's not really that tight once you break it loose, but get that thing out, and then once it clears, you just pull it right out. It's got, this particular version has got 2. Some of yours might have 3 if you have the one that has wireless and Bluetooth and all that stuff. So once I take that out, I can go ahead and bring this inside and work on it on the bench. So once we have it on the bench, I've been working on these things for a couple of months now, so I've taken plenty apart, but you're gonna go ahead and just unscrew this, the impeller right here, just a single screw, pull that out. You've got 4 of these guys right here. You might as well just take off the diverter if you have this. You don't necessarily have to take off this part, but we'll do it just so you can see everything better. So once we do that, you'll see I've got all this corrosion, this blue corrosion. That's usually the copper in the motor that's reacting. So once you take that off, you go ahead and just pop all these clips all around the edge, the seals, and then this last one over here. Usually this last one's the hardest. And then at that point, you could just basically just pry it open. It does take a second to get one side open because it's basically airtight right now, or it should be. So a lot of times you have to kind of pry one in, but we just go ahead and just pop that really quick, easy. And then you'll notice inside, this one's pretty dry. I don't see anything wrong with it, so I don't know why it's been acting up. Before I used it most recently, I did open it up already and change this out just to make sure that it didn't leak. But right now I don't see any leaks in here and any reason why this thing would not start up. Usually once you get inside of here, this thing is full of junk and crap from all the water getting in. I see a little bit of moisture on here, but not enough to really damage or affect anything. So I'm wondering why this thing's not starting up. I'll just go ahead, kind of mess around with it. probably have to clean up that corrosion on the top. For now, I'll go ahead and just disconnect all the connections on here so I can just take this motor out and clean it up a little bit. So most of these are all just, you know, snapped in harnesses. But for the most part, you could just get them off pretty easily. So the motor's off there. I'm not gonna remove the board so the rest of that can stay. So what I have now, to put this off, I usually just use some pliers, or actually I could just pull it by hand there. But yeah, that corrosion is just nasty here. So you see all that, I'm gonna go ahead and clean that all off. So I noticed my motor, the whole top here is actually freaking corroded and all gone. Look at that. So that thing, I've never seen it this bad. Look at that. I don't know what the hell. Yeah, that's just sitting in that chlorine water right there. It actually started eating away and killing all that brass that was on here, and then basically getting into the seal. So I see exactly what happened. This thing is probably compromised right there already. So for comparison, you can see this is a motor I had right there, and this is the one that just took out, that corroded to hell. You could see how much of that reacted and died. I don't know what happened there. You know, it's probably been in the pool for like 3 months, 4 months since I messed with this last, and that happened in that time frame. Something that you could get in there firmly just to break it loose before you use the drill on it. What I usually do before I do this too, I like to mark the spots on here so I know where to put everything back together later. So usually I mark a little spot where the screw is to line up there. Screw right there. All this stuff here. Yeah, we're gonna end up swapping this out anyway, so I'll just go ahead and mark this flat spot right here on this spot so I know that's where that lines up. So once you do that, you can go ahead and pull this, separate it out. So you can see this thing's gonna be full of winding dust from the wear and tear in here. So just be careful with that. I usually go take it out there and blow it. So inside you can see all that dust. I don't know if that's from the magnet dust and all the stuff in the electromagnet, or is that from a seal burning out or whatever in here. Because you can see all that old grease kind of, you know, burning up in here. But we'll go ahead and take everything apart and pull this thing apart. Yeah, you see all that dust there. I'm about to vacuum that up. But inside here, you can go ahead and pull that off. You can see all your bushing dust. So the brushes in here are pretty clean, and they're still full. Everything is pretty clean in here from the looks of it, but I'll go ahead and just blow all this out just to get it all cleaned up. So we went ahead and cleaned everything off. So you can see in here, it's a pretty basic board. You've got these two capacitors. A lot of times those go bad if they get wet, so you want to replace those. You have your brushes, which eventually wear down, so that's another wear item you gotta keep an eye on. This one is more than half life, which we're good. And then you just have these two inductors on the outside. As long as no corrosion gets in here, you should be good. Usually once the corrosion sits at the bottom of this is what damages it and fries that motor out. So I just discovered something that's gonna suck for our shaft here. I noticed right where the water line gets to it, or right, yeah, basically where the seal goes, there's a huge scoring right now right here that you can't, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but you can see it's really bad. I don't know how the hell this happened. It must be like right there where all the corrosion was, and those little bits of metal must have gotten into the bearing or the seal and just rode this thing and wore it down. But there's a scoring, but it's only like on one side, like it was kind of spinning offset or something, so that's not good. So what I decided to do is, on one of my old robots right here, this one, I had rebuilt this thing, but I was having problems, I think, with the controller down here with the capacitor. So What I'm gonna go ahead and do is use the one that's good over there. This is the exact same model and everything, so the shaft and everything should be the exact same size. I checked my other motor that I had over there, and it was a really older version of this motor, and the shaft was a little bit different, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to swap this out. It should be the exact same shaft. So these two are exactly the same. This one I had changed out the brushes and everything, and I had not changed out the capacitors yet, because that came with one of the kits I bought, but it still wasn't working right, or something was wrong with my controller that I was testing it on the last unit. So I'm just go ahead and try this guy right here. So this one's I freshly rebuilt with new bearings and everything, so this thing is nice and clean and new. I'm gonna go ahead and use this guy again. Line up that mark that I had right there with that guy. So it goes in here. Go ahead and make sure I have that wave washer in there, and then you gotta slide this around right into there, and we'll line up. And also when I rebuilt that, I changed the seals inside the cap up here too. Make sure everything twists is good and there's a little bit of resistance in there, and then we'll put it back in and test. All right, so over here at my test bench, I actually have a power supply. This thing is 24 volts, so we'll go ahead and turn this on and set it at 24 volts, and then we'll see what it runs at. You don't want to run this too long because you don't want to burn out the seals either, because remember, this thing does not have the moisture and the water to cool it, short anything out. So I got those things in. Go ahead and turn it on. So we're running it right now, and it's running at 1.0 amps, which is good, because earlier when I had my other one, it was running at like 1.3, 1.4. Yeah, just running it for like 20 seconds there. I could feel the shaft right now is warm, so you don't want to run it too much and burn out your seal. So once you put these seals back on, you want to dab a little bit of silicone grease on the seals just to lube them up and give them a little bit of seal around here. So put it on there and just spread it around with your glove. I want to go ahead and clean this better. I don't want any of that oxidation to spread and cause any more damage. I cleaned it up as much as I could, just enough so it doesn't spread anymore. I don't know what brass reacts with, but usually with any kind of corrosion, you don't want to keep too much of it around, which can cause additional corrosion on the new metal. So next thing we want to do, get back to getting this thing in there, make sure everything's lubed up. I went ahead, got one of these clips, a cleaner one from one of my other robots I have. I've got like 4 of these right now. I just pick them up when I find them for cheap or free, basically, on Marketplace. But we'll go ahead and pop that thing back in. Just make sure everything's good there. And then I'm gonna have to start keeping an eye on this guy, make sure it doesn't corrode out either. So what I've been doing since I've been messing with these robots, every time I have these big silica packs, I've been saving them, because you can actually swap them out and use them in here to help save some moisture. So that's why I've been just keeping these around. You keep it in there, any kind of moisture gets in there, it'll soak it up and it'll prevent damage to your boards and your motor. What I've been doing too is I've been tucking a few of these around here on the board, just to make sure that we protect this board, because that's the most important thing, this board right here, because usually we can get those replacement motors on eBay from used units or refurbished units, but these boards are much harder to find. So you just want to make sure you keep these things right here. And I like the ones that are like soft, either paper or if they're like a cloth material, because they work much better. So here it is. So I've got 2 up there and then 1 on the bottom, just to make sure I'm covered on the board side. So after that, we want to make sure we clean everything. If you have your O-ring, make sure that thing's all cleaned and lubed up and put around here so we can snap it on. So you want to just make sure that thing's all lubed up, spread the the silicone grease around it. And then one of the things I want to do too, I usually put the silica pack right around the edge here on the motor because of how the water drips down into the actual round part right there. Once you put it in there, you want to make sure you don't have any wires pinching or any of that stuff. So that's one of the things I always want to be sure of. My wires are all cleared. They're not getting in the way of the O-ring and all that. So once we got it in there, we'll go ahead and just press evenly all around, and then just go ahead and snap the clips on. We snapped this one last right here because of the cord. We have to have the cord tuck under here. I went ahead and put the cord back on, just put it on, tighten it, but don't over tighten it. You might end up breaking the plastic. And then you want to just loop this thing underneath here. You'll see the markings for it when you took it out, but just in case, you just want to get it under there and then pretty much close this latch, and it snaps right in and it kind of locks that thing in place. So now we've got all that. I'll go ahead and put it all back in and we'll test it in the pool. So we got everything back in just the way I took it out. Really just basically 2 screws down here and 2 screws here, and pretty much everything's back together. We'll go ahead and put the basket back in and throw it in the pool and see if this baby starts back up. So right here, we'll go ahead and turn this thing on, turn it on 1 cycle, and we'll see if this thing boots up and does its movements. Crap. Not doing anything. That sucks. So right now, I'm testing it on the bench, and it looks like it's working right, because the side gear kicks on and it tests properly, and then the impeller starts running. So this is a good sign. So I don't know what's going on, because the gear also spins freely on the housing. So I might swap that with another robot I already have. Maybe something's wrong with the gearing. I'm gonna shut this off before it burns out my motor. All right, let's go ahead and try to start this again. Turn it on, turn it to 1. Let's see if it runs in the water. Going forward. The impeller is running. I want to get it off this wall. Yeah, we'll just let it run out there, because what you don't want to do is give it too much resistance, because it measures the amps. It's trying to climb a wall now. Yeah, it's on the wall climbing mode right now. But yeah, it looks like it's working again. So I do have to keep an eye out on that thing every couple days, probably just to see what that corrosion's doing and make sure it doesn't spread to this motor too. Anyways, if you guys found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to your channel, go ahead and subscribe to your channel, turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different DIY projects, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.